So let us start the session.
Yes.
And first of all, I would like to welcome Professor Saswata Narayan Biswas sir from IRMA Anand. And first of all, I would like to tell all the participants that this particular initiative of the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology is just to uh, use the knowledge of IO psychology, managing human resources, and uh, for especially living our life in a better way, so that we are able to live our own life in a better way, and at the same time we are able to help others to live their life in a better way. So that's why the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology has started this initiative for the benefit of all. And I'm happy that uh, renowned persons like Sashwat sir are supporting us in this initiative, so that we are able to uh, help people to live their life in a better way. So, with this brief introduction to the initiative of the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology, I would like to ask Ms. Soumya Chandra to formally uh, introduce Sashwat sir for this particular session. Soumya.
Sir. Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome Professor Saswata Narayan Biswas sir to today's session of Udyogcare Talks organized by Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology. Sir is a professor of organizational behavior and human resource at the Institute of Rural Management Anand. Professor Biswas has about 35 years of professional experience in research, teaching, executive training, and consulting, and has published more than 40 research in refereed journals and as book chapters. He is the chief editor of International Journal of Rural Management, Sage Publications, as well as on the member editorial board on journals such as Community Work and Family, Taylor and Francis, Amity Journal of Management Research, and Parikalpana, the Research Journal. As a management trainer, he has conducted more than 100 management development programs in India and abroad on team building, group dynamics, executive effectiveness, and leadership. He has been a visiting faculty in several institutions in India and abroad, and presently he is on the board of International Association of Applied Psychology. Today, Professor Biswas is here to talk to us about individual and cultural factors in working from home, and considering his vast wealth of experience in the field, it would be an honor to hear Sir's lecture. So, without further ado, let's welcome Sir to please come and address us.
Okay. Thank you, Soumya. Good morning to all of you. And a special thanks to Sandeep and the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology for inviting me to talk about working from home. And it's a good occasion. It's a great occasion for me also that some or other this Society of Industrial Organizational Psychology, which is at a nascent stage and trying to establish professionally industrial and organizational psychology and giving a platform to industrial organizational psychologists to interact with each other. And I am sure that SOIOP will have a long journey because till date, we have in most cases the organizational behavior has been subsumed under management disciplines, and the industrial and organizational psychology in India, I'm talking about India, is yet to find its rightful place, and SIOP is working for that, and I'm very happy that they have taken this responsibility. Uh, to start with, and thank you, Soumya, for a very kind introduction. And Today I will talk about the working from home, but mostly I had I've been talking about it because for quite some time in the recent past we have been thinking of people have been working from home, and I'll talk about the basic my interest in the discipline in this particular area. I'll talk about it a bit later maybe. But before that, I should state that it is becoming important. Working from home, it was COVID was a first time in India at least. Working from home has become of mass interest, but people have been working from home since long, and that's what I want to talk about. And what are the cultural factors and individual factors that impede in them? Okay, we are here. I see there are 21 participants, 21 people have logged in. It's a small group. Sometimes small group is better, so that we will have more interactive session. That I would request you people to ask whenever, and if you in between also, if you think that suppose you are not able to hear me, that's one. Or please stop me, please give me a feedback. Otherwise, I have no way of knowing it, whether I am getting across. Second is that if you have queries, then please write it on this message box, and I am time to time I'll be looking at it, and as it comes I will also respond to it if there are some queries, or we will club all the queries at the end. I will respond to the queries, and I would request all of you to think and ask, because what we have started, I'll tell you about a brief background. When this lockdown started, that is after 24th March, I have been working from home much before that, because I was this sort of a sabbatical and working from home, but I most often, not every day, but connect to my institute. I stay much far away from my institute, so where I work, and but I on online I keep in touch with them. And when the lockdown started, I got interested how others are thinking about it, how others are feeling, and those who are working from home. So I started a small research on web. I asked using social media, and then I wrote two very brief blog sort of thing. And after that, once we got responses, and then I also talked to a larger group in one of my webinar, and then suddenly I saw that many people are writing back to me, and then with this one thing led to another, and we started one small research group, and we got together 3-4 of us, and we started online. We started collecting data online on people's experiences of, and from different levels, the experiences of working from home. And then I started talking in-depth interviews. We have been conducting in-depth interviews on working from home. I have been conducting in-depth interviews, and all this put together, certain things started emerging, certain patterns started emerging. And that's as an industrial organizational psychologist, I got interested in it. What is the pattern? And that's what I will be talking about today. You see, one thing that is very clear, that though worldwide, in Western countries, people have many jobs. In many jobs, people had started working from home, and it is nothing new for many of them, because say 2 days in a week working from home was taken for granted in many organizations. Let me give you an example. In educational institution, 2001, I was in Australia visiting faculty at University of South Australia at Whyalla campus, and there I found many colleagues. They would say that, okay, I am working from home. Today I'll be working from home. Next week for 3 days I'll be working from home. And as far as 19, 20 years back, it was okay for people to work from home. And slowly, as with the growth of ICT, in many other companies also started. In India also, some of the international companies started working from home culture, not now, 3 to 4 years back. But this recent lockdown forced people, forced organizations to think of alternative ways of organizing work, and work from home has become, many organizations had adopted, some grudgingly, and waiting for things to open up fully, and then they would get back to the brick and mortar thing. Some organizations have gone forward and said, okay, work from home will be the norm. So most organizations, they are at different stages in the evolution to work from home. And I will first talk about the cultural barriers. And why I say it cultural barrier, I'll explain it. But cultural barriers that have emerged both from individual point of view and from organizational point of view. So we will have to discriminate this, that what we call is a societal culture, that is where individuals get influenced by the societal culture, and every organization also develops its own culture, what we call is organizational culture. And so what emerged from our research, whatever we have done, though all the data is yet to be analyzed, but I have been going through and all the interviews that we have been doing. But what is emerging? And one pattern is emerging, that certain aspects of our culture hinders individuals from fully working from home, and certain organizational factors. And the one major thing about the individual factors that impede is that, and it has a history. I'll go back and forth in history. Like, for example, in India or any other country for that matter, in ancient time, most of us used to work from home. The artisans used to work from home. The farmer used to work from home. The cobbler used to work from home. And most professionals those days would work from home. People will go and visit the home. In fact, the teachers, the gurus, used to work from home. They used to have their own schools, the ashrams, and where students would come, and in the ashram, the teacher would live there. That is the home of a teacher, and the pupil will go and be taught there. So working from home is not something new to humankind. Working from home has been there all along. But what happened, and that's what, when I say cultural factors, culture is not something, not static. Culture moves. People adopt newer ways, and a cultural thing that have got into, basically when we talk about culture, it is basically what I mean by it, that when in any given community, in any given society, large number of people follow a pattern of behavior. And those patterns, and those patterns of behavior are accepted mode of transaction. That okay, this is how people, so some patterns of behavior, I'll give you on a lighter note. I was it was in Canada that I was traveling, and it was very dark. A friend of mine was driving, and we were in the car, and there was a red signal on the road, and there was no one around. So he stopped the car. So I looked at him. Why did you stop? There is nobody. Why don't you drive? He said, are you mad? He wants to get me killed. I can't drive. Here, today, when I had gone somewhere else and I was driving back, just today morning, it happened, 10:30. There was a red signal on at a crossing, and I stopped my car, and I saw motorcyclists left and right all overtaking me, all breaking the red signal. Some of us, and I know there will be objections, there will be people, but I think it's a part of our culture. And I would not hesitate calling part. It has become a part of the culture until and unless there is a strong deterrent. People are not stopped from jumping red signals. They will, if there is no one, no policeman, no one to check you, then people will tend to. And this has an implication for our work organizations also. And this has also implications for working from home. The first thing is that it is a trust. That the major barrier that many managers are talking about working from home, the barrier they say that when we do not have people coming to our office and working, we are not sure that they are actually working. and we feel that they are wasting time, maybe whiling away company's time. And how do you know? ICT, of course, there is ICT. ICT can, you can make use of ICT to see what people are doing at different points in time. But most managers are also not sure about it. And they are thinking that maybe people are cheating. And actually, they may not be, sometimes they may not be wrong at all. And that's what I want to highlight, and why it has come. Why do we have this? Maybe I have my own ways of thinking about it. I have my own. One thing is that the modern organization, Western organizations emerged in India. We had organizations, but when I say modern organizations, I am talking about the organizations in the Western type, or the classic Western organizations that had come to India. It came with the Britishers, the British East India Company. It was, never forget that it was a company that ruled us. And the company brought in a different culture, which was very different. From it had some good, some bad. I will not get into that. But let me tell you one thing. Many of us, of course, now pension is not, after 2005, government pension is gone. But it was British East India Company which had introduced a pension scheme in India for its employees in India and abroad. Of course, at the same time, they also introduced high discriminatory wages. That's a different story. I will not get into that. So they introduced certain things, but at the same time, the people, when Indians got introduced to the Western, they were kept alienated. They had alienated from work organizations. In fact, I do not know how many of you have heard of this. In olden days, there was a proverb, "Company ka maal darya mein dal." I don't know how many of you have heard of it. The phrase was used, basically, "Company ka maal" means it is the East India Company, the government. And if it is the government property, you just waste it because it is alien from us. It is not ours. And that transcended to any company. So the conscientiousness which has to emerge did not emerge because there was no engagement. And company was always foreign, company was always dreadful, and company was always an exploiter. And that sank into the minds of people so deeply that it was passed on from one generation to another. Though in some quarters, company was a savior. For some quarters, it was a savior. It particularly, as I told you, to some sections, for example, their soldiers, British East India Company soldiers, were the first soldiers in Indian history who, after their retirement, short service, they started getting pension, and they never thought about that they will get a pension. So that was one of the reasons, strong reasons, for the company to rule for such a long time. Of course, there were hindrances, but at least it ruled for 90 years. And later on, the British Crown took over, and again another 90 years. First 100 years, and then 90 years they ruled. So, what actually started? People started. They got alienated from the company, from the and that got into generations. That for generations, that as long as in Bengal, like for example, to give you this attempt of world culture, in Bengal there was a proverb for the peasants. The proverb is that Bamon galo ghar langol tude dhar. That means, I'll just explain, I'll translate it, that when the landlord is not there, don't try to till the land. So only when the landlord is present, the jamindar is present, you till the land. So you don't till the land when he's not present, in absence. And it became such an ingredient. Maybe they were right. They were right because it was an exploitative system. Both British system and the company system and all zamindari systems were very exploitative. But what actually did to people, it never, like in Western context, we say the development of Protestant work culture, which changed, Weber talks about it, that could not develop in India because of this alienation engagement. And in India, the private enterprises that are organizations, apart from government, I talk about the government, the enterprises that started operating, their model was, the first model was another private company, that was East India Company. That was the first model. And then the government became, and because East India Company was the government, so the government became a model. So many of the private sectors, rules, norms, the cultural factors that were created were modeled based on that. And what was the model? The model was this, that do not trust your subordinates. And subordinates knew very well that we are not trusted. So we should also try to find out ways and means how not to do work. And that culture, not that I'm not saying that there were not exceptional cases, there are many exceptional cases, many. That's how things ran properly. But it was the classical, as we say, the carrot and stick. That is what the whole regime and all the early organizations followed that same process. That what the process is in organizational behavior, we call it close supervision. The close supervision became an obsession with managers. And secondly, of course, employees have not been trained to become responsible. I'm responsible. I'm stealing from Stephen Covey, who says that responsibility, that this ability to respond, development of ability to respond is a responsibility. And so therefore, taking up of responsibility was not a widespread phenomenon in Indian organizations. And it is both ways. And let us not say that who is good or who is bad, but it works both ways. And maybe people were, in fact, if you look at many old OB research in India, and when you look at research work like Professor J.V.P. Sinha's research work, and there you will find a very interesting fact that emerges. That when I remember one of the interviews he had quoted, that a new boss comes in, and if the boss is very friendly and is mixing with people, the boss is known as, regarded by the subordinates as weak. And if the boss is very strict, very authoritarian, very autocratic, then people started respecting that boss. And authoritarian, and by that we mean not just authority, but that close supervision. Are you working there? Are you there? You are not, so on and so forth. and we carry that baggage. The first barrier, because people don't have that trust that if you assign a task, that task will be completed. I was talking to someone in UK few days back, and he was telling me this thing that when you give some work to some Indian outsourcing people, they will say we will finish it by Monday evening, and they will not pick up the call when you actually call on Monday evening. And then Tuesday morning, they will call you back and say, by Tuesday, today evening, we are sending it to you. He says that is the thing, and he said this, that many of our Indian subcontractors and outsourcing people, they think that not picking up the call means I will not be detected about my, not doing the work on time. So honoring your words, commitment to that work that is what we'll have to build up. You see, it will not happen if you just say that, tell someone that tomorrow you will be committed. And these barriers, and I'm saying this is the first barrier. The second barrier, from individual point of view, I have talked in one of my earlier talks I gave. I talked about all the structural barriers, but when we talk about cultural barriers, is that as I told you, that jumping the red signal. I don't know, in most cities, maybe in Delhi or Bombay, people don't do it. I've been living in small towns, tier 2 cities, most of my life, and I have seen that people often do not, they are actually happy to break the rule. And this also sits into our own organizations. Second, another problem is India, in the last lockdown period, when people were one thing, because of the lockdown, they were not getting domestic help. And that's another cultural thing that comes up, that our whole arrangement of life, the way we have arranged our life, the way we have arranged starting from cooking of food, to cleaning of house, everything is largely dependent, particularly middle class Indians are dependent on domestic help, which in the West that has been, for at least for the middle class cannot afford domestic help. And that's the problem. Only very rich people can afford domestic help. And there it was, when you talk about working from home, it's easily. But here, because our dependence, because work has been arranged in such way. Work has been, the whole process has been, for example, let us start with our food. I'm not blaming our food habits. They're one of the best food that we get, cooked, rotis and all that. But if you look at most Indian food, they take time to prepare. They have a process, and if you really calculate the time, I did it because recently I have some good experience of it. So I did calculate that every process, because we have we start it from scratch. We don't have vegetables which is already been cut. We don't have machines which cuts. It is only a knife with which you cut, and particularly the food, the cooking process, and all are time consuming. They're laborious, and because of that, when you do not have domestic help. Recently, I was interviewing some young mothers, and where the husband is also working from home. And one cultural factor is it is expectation from the woman that woman, now she is a working lady, that people actually keep forgetting that she has a responsibility. But when she is sitting to work, she is also worried about that she has to cook the breakfast, prepare the breakfast, or like one lady said that I know my husband can do it, but I will not trust him with the kitchen. And that's the I understood that it's coming from the cultural factor, that taking responsibility for kitchen or many other household chores, and it becomes difficult to maintain that when you are at home, others' expectations, and particularly from the lady of the family, expectation is very high that she would be If she's at home, that means she's not working, which is not true because she's working from home. When even if when for male members also, when there are some elderly people at home that I have heard, I was interviewing one person, and he has an elderly parents, and he has to take care of elderly parents. But when he started working from home, the parents did not they understood that he's doing something, but they were not so well. They said, okay, you are here. If you are here, you can always take care of us. And then he had to explain to them, educate them, and tell them that, look, when I'm in a meeting, I'm in the office, so don't disturb me there. So that is one. So these are the cultural factors. Say gender gap. One thing as I should highlight here, that a recent experience, our data suggests that recently women got, particularly those who live with their children and spouse, or their husbands, they were actually at a receiving end working from home. They had to actually be 3 times. And they say, one lady, she said that at the end of the day, I'm so fatigued, I'm not able to think about anything else. And at the same time, my boss would ring me up at 10 o'clock in the night and asking for some details. And that's one another thing what we talk about organizational culture. Organizations, the managers have not matured to the extent, because, and that needs training, because these are deep-seated beliefs rooted in our culture, that I will have to have a close supervision. If I am not closely supervising, I am not effective. Actually, that's a feedback of the superior to himself or herself, that I'll have to closely supervise. And what close supervision means? Whenever you need, for example, you are sitting somewhere and in the middle of the night, 10 o'clock, some ideas strike you. So you will have to immediately call up. You cannot wait till the next morning, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whenever the work starts. So not respecting someone else's time, not respecting the off time or off days of your subordinate is a cultural deterrent. It is a cultural factor, and it is most Indian managers need to be trained. And particularly, like one person who is working with the government, state. Another problem with state machinery and all the state controlled organizations, and that they never had, and many of them till date do not have, any standard operating procedure for working from home. Their only strategy, only when the employee enters into the premises, they start working, even if they are not working. So what employees have done, in the sense that, okay, we come here, once we are present, physically present, that means work is getting done. That there is a difference between presence and work, that has not done. And that is where the training is needed to train people to understand that there is a difference between presence and working. And second is that, as I told you, that close supervision, because you don't trust that you have a feeling that you are not doing your job. Managers feel that they are not doing their job if they are not immediately checking whether it's an off day or whatever the time does not, checking up with their subordinates whether the work is getting done. So there has to be a cultural shift. The cultural shift, in the sense, cultural shift of the organization. That work does not get, you don't start work only when the employees get your premises. So particularly the public sector organization and government, like one respondent from a public sector organization, she said that now the lockdown is over and I am required, though all of us know that I can still do this work from home, but that will not be possible, because my organization does not have a standard operating procedure for working from home. So every organization, universities for example, many universities till date have not started, they have not developed a standard operating procedure for working from home. And what has stopped them? It is again the cultural factors. Close supervision. Today morning, you'll have to come and sign on the register. And signing the register is most important. Whether you work Subsequent to signing of register or not, that is not so important. But signing of register or marking your attendance with a thumbprint is more important. And that is what is the greatest, and that's what I'm saying is a danger. So every organization should do two, three things, and with this I will end my talk. One is that organizations should start having developing a standard operating procedure. Cultures change with 10 years, 5 years thing. You can change certain culture. In organizational culture can change faster than that. Societal culture has changed. We have seen in the last 20 years many organizations. Like for example, when I started working in a bank, it was unthinkable for anyone to think of that you can get loan sitting to your home, and it will also get disbursed, and you will have the things without ever coming to bank branch. Now it is possible, and so ICT has opened up a lot of possibilities. In fact, work that was never thought, that people did not think that this work can be done sitting at home. People can get, a farmer can actually start a pump in his field, which is 5 kilometers away from his home, with his mobile phone. So this is happening in Anand. It has happened, and I'm sure it must be happening in other places. So with a remote from the mobile phone, you can switch on a pump and switch off a pump. And from 5 kilometers distance, 10 kilometer distance does not matter. So people can, in fact, the farmers can start farming, staying at home. That's the possibility is there. So I do not, that most of the things that it is possible. But what is more difficult? So there are technological solutions for most of these problems. That can be taken. But there is no technological solution for people's belief that, for example, trust. That please trust your subordinates, and subordinates should be saying that you are getting paid for certain work, you will have to deliver the work on time. So the standard operating procedure will have to be developed. People have to, so there is a lot for training. And I would say that here industrial and organizational psychologists have a role to play, that train people to change certain habits and change the culture of the organization. Thank you. I can see Sandeep ji. And so thank you. And if you have any questions, any observations, please, I will just check on that. They have to give priority to home, and there is no such concept to work from home for females. Yes, it is true, and that is one research we are conducting now. And I did in-depth interviews of many women, and this is what is coming up. But culture has to change. That's what I'm saying. That one has to, and we'll have to sensitize our family members. We'll have to, for example, we'll have to first sensitize our bosses that please do not call up your subordinates during off hours. Please do not call your subordinates on holidays until and unless it is a life and death situation. So please do not do this. Respect people's private time, their personal time. As education instead of SOP for working from me, I am not aware of any education, including mine, which has developed my organization, of course, has developed something, but it is not a formal SOP. But I hope that most organizations develop a SOP for working from home, and IO psychology should be helping them to develop it. Priyanka, this was Priyanka's question. Savitri Chandrasekharan, sir, that is a great session. My doubt is India belongs to. One thing, thank you for this is a wonderful question, Savitri Chandrasekharan, and I am really happy that you asked this question. First of all, let me tell you one myth. I will say myth, which was first started by some European and Canadian psychologists, American psychologists, and it was reinforced by some Indian psychologists. And that myth is that India being a collectivistic society. It is, first of all, it is not. And I will explain to that what is collectivism. Chinese and the true Confucianism where you have is the Chinese, and we are not Confucian. We are our culture is a mix of religious, practical, pragmatic, yeah, whereas Confucianism is not. It has got nothing to do with religion. It is a-religious. Uh, the Chinese and Japanese culture, most Southeast Asian cultures are collectivistic, and they are collectivistic. One of the as someone who is interested in history also, if you look at the history of these nations, particularly China and Japan, they have Japan for very few years under China for very few years under Japan, but both these countries have largely been independent entities. They could retain their culture for thousands of years. And they knew that with the collective action, I will maybe at some other time, we don't have much time here, so refer to, there's a lot of literature on this. Whereas India, it lost, even if it had some collectivistic, that collectivism has ended in family. We are collective as a family, that is, but beyond family, even for the village, we are not collectivistic. If we were collectivistic, we would not be jumping the red light. We would not be, there would not have been any need for a movement for sanitation. If you look at Japan and China, because of the collectivistic culture, collectivistic nature of the culture, people would not throw anything because the road is mine. The outside is, there is no differentiation between outside, inside. But we are not collectivistic. Our collectivism ends in inside our family, our home. I will keep my home clean, but throw all the garbage on the road, and that is because it is outside. Outside is something that is dirty. So please understand there is and maybe a book is needed for this total, but I think it is this difference that has, so we are never collective, and that's a wrong thing to say that we are collective. We are familialistic. I will chacha, kaka, dada, mama, tau, and all these uncles, aunts, they are I am collectivistic as far as they are concerned, but not beyond that. And at the maximally, my collectivism will not go beyond my caste, whatever caste I belong to. Even if our voting is within caste, not a collectivistic. If we had it been a collectivistic, it would have gone beyond this. So please understand that we are not a collectivistic. That has been a myth, because like all Chinese people look alike to us. Similarly, for all Westerners, all the Eastern, of course, it is not true. There is a politics behind it, but I will not talk about it now. But all Western, particularly social scientists, psychologists, and all that, they try to club it, because clubbing, having a categorization, simple categorization, like Hofstede's and others, it's very easy to explain. It is very attractive, and if it becomes more nuanced, it is difficult to handle. And that is, but they do not understand that it is India's society is much more nuanced than anyone can think of. So that is, I think, maybe one day we will all be forced to work in. Yes, it was all of a sudden, and I'm sure in the future we will be doing more work from home than from office. Slowly there will be a change. And Sandeep ji, with this, I think there are no more questions, no more comments. With this, I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question from my side.
Sure.
Yeah, India being a collectivistic society, and we are working from home. So in that case, usually we don't have a separate space for work from home kind of facilities. So how we are going to change this culture in future? For example, if I'm working from home, even today itself, I had to make some arrangements. I have to tell my children that this today I have a session and you need not disturb me. So many things are even at home. You have to change the patterns or belief in our family as well. So what kind of challenges we are going to face or people are facing nowadays? You have
Yeah,
talked to
yeah. Thank you. This is a very, very pertinent question. The two things. First, again, I don't know whether I have heard you correctly. You said India is a collective. We are not. We'll have to create another category, and the category is we are familialistic. We are family-oriented culture. We are not community oriented culture. Please understand. Collectivistic cultures are basically it is a community. Like the road is mine, the field is mine, outside everything is part of me. That is a collectivistic culture. But it is not. For us, for example, you are when we are coming from outside, you are not clean, and that's fine. So therefore, we are familialistic, we are not collectivistic. So that is one thing. Second is what you are talking about. It is our resource base. Our because we are and most countries are in many other places. We are resource base, so our living spaces, and that I have talked in another of my talks that we have talked about it. The living spaces are cramped. They are small. And because they're cramped and small, and we do not have, most of us do not have a separate working place, but that has to be slowly, the organizations will have to use this opportunity. Maybe they can help employees, and employees will also have to, you know, uh, I remember just to one slightly distraction, but one Japanese friend had come to our place. And he entered in my Irma quarters. I had a small, modest bathroom, not very big, not very small by Indian standards. He got into our bathroom and said, "Oh, it's a huge bathroom." Now the point is, it is huge, but it is disorganized. A Japanese bathroom is much smaller, very small compared to our standard bathroom, but it is very well organized. The point is that we will have to organize it. And maybe we'll have to take some lessons from Japanese how to organize spaces, and maybe they can come and teach us that how to utilize space creation. So I do not think space is a problem, but it is not one of the problems which we cannot surmount without making just some small arrangement that will change. Okay. I hope, Sandeep ji, I hope I have, uh, I am not able to see you. You have switched off your video. Hello? Is it audible? Okay. Hello?
yes, sir. You are audible.
No, I'm saying that, okay, I lost. Anyway, this is, I think, is one can not answer now. What is difficult is our own mental block, and that is most difficult. That will have to overcome. Okay, sir. I think I have. Thank you so much. Thanks.
One question from one of the HR
Yes.
who's working in
Yes.
Lucknow as a
Yes.
Margdastak Financial Services Limited. So
Huh.
she is asking, how can we tackle the employees who are working on the field during COVID duration? How can we differentiate from the front staff and the back staff?
Huh.
So there is a controversy between them. So we can provide work from home to back office team only, but not for the field team. So they are having some issues in that
Yeah.
case.
Uh, this is another aspect that we'll have to train people in most organizations. What happens, and it is about it's a human nature. And human nature is this, it is not how much I am getting that actually makes me happy. But what makes me sometimes happy is that how much less other people are getting. Or if someone is getting more than me, I am becoming unhappy. And more or less is all our own mind creation. So I think that there some people will have to do field style work, and in the field work, when they go into the field, there are certain pros and there are certain cons. Similarly, those who are working from home, they have certain pros, certain cons. Better is to sympathize both, and I would recommend the best way to tackle this. Sometimes field workers should be given options from working home. Certain type of work they can complete at home, assign those tasks at home. So they should also have an experience of working from home. Similarly, those who are working from home, sometimes at times they will have to give this responsibility of working in the field, so that both of them realize how important. I am reminded of one Mr. George Fernandez. He was a great leader. And Fernandez, as a defense minister, wanted the civil servants who are sitting in the central secretariat, in the secretariats in Delhi, to go to Siachen and Ladakh and all the elite areas to experience how the soldiers feel there. And they will have a post compulsory service there, so that they know the difficulties in working in the mountains. So similarly, office staff, and that is what most of the, we are talking about Japanese style of management. Long back when I was a PhD student, I was working on something on that. And one thing as an assignment I did, and I found that there almost all employees in the organization, they put on rotation. That you will have to rotate your job. You will have to go field. If you have not worked for in the field, you will not get any promotion. I remember when I started working in bank that time, all your future promotions were linked to, because those days many people would not like to go to rural areas. And rural, if you do not go work in a rural branch for a few years, at least couple of years or 4 years, all your future promotion is stopped. So the point is that your field work, the field experience is absolutely needed for any higher position. There has to be a rotation. I think that's the way. And for that, a standard operating procedure has to be developed. How it will be done, when it will be done, to whom it will be done. For all these, there has to be a written document. Yes, sir. Sandeep ji.
Thank you, sir. It was a nice learning. Your session was very informative. So, as a protocol, I would request one of our student from Department of Psychology, she is a PhD student, to formally propose vote of thanks. Garima.
Hello.
Yes, Garima, please go ahead.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah. Clear.
Okay, very good afternoon. And I would like to thank Honorable Professor Biswas. It's my most he was a very valued invited guest. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on the behalf of Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology and the entire participants, would like to thank you a lot, sir, because you have given us a lot of new ideas and opinions about how this COVID-19 is going to impact the whole organizational structure and the employees working in the organization. As we all know that this COVID-19 is going to bring a huge shift in the organizational life and the work of the and the life of the employees. And especially I would like to thank your views on how we need to be more sensitive about the female workers. As a female, I really liked your idea that how people at the home as well as on the work expect everything from the female, and it's very hard
to be staying at home and fulfilling all the expectation of the office, and if because they are at home, so they have to like complete all the expectation of their family members. So I really liked your idea that we need to be more sensitive and we need to train our family and our we need a different training in our culture, that we need to respect the time of our female workers. And one more point, sir, as you told that managers should start respecting the personal time of employees. I think that was a very that is a very genuine issue in Indian culture. Workers are not respected. Like if they are working from home, I can see in case of my parents, if they are working from home, they are getting calls at any time. I think that disturbs them a lot, and which causes them not to be very productive, and they are disturbed at home also. So I would really like to thank you, sir, because you gave some genuine issues which we need to look upon. And as a researcher, we got some genuine issues that our Indian organizations are facing. Because most of the time we work on Western culture concepts. And these two concepts I found very interesting and very genuine to work upon in Indian context. So at last, I would like to thank you, sir, on behalf of everyone, every participant. I guess everyone gave a feedback that it was wonderful listening to you. So thank you a lot, sir, for sharing your ideas and opinions. All your points regarding the cultural issues were very genuine, and we all actually don't every day look upon it, but they were very genuine, and it was very nice. It was very wonderful experience listening to you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.